Hello. My name is Jacob Miranda. I'm a member of the grassroots organization FORRT, a framework for open and reproducible research training. FORRT is largely composed of early career researchers, volunteers who aspire for better teaching, mentorship, and pedagogy. I would like to thank Sage Publishing for inviting us here, as today's overall theme is really about teaching online. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what resources exist as they relate to open and reproducible science that can support you all. So we all know teaching is hard. Teaching online, even more difficult. Teaching online during a time of a pandemic is unprecedented. But I want you to know that you are not alone, that resources do exist for you that are widely available and accessible. So, I believe many of you are social scientists who are going to be teaching quant, but a lot of us are going to be interacting with science education, right? And we have to ask, what is the best way to express science education? By teaching the students knowledge itself and the output, or by teaching students the process of science? And out of the many things to consider when teaching, at FORRT, we believe that focusing on open and reproducible science tenets and principles as they relate to the process is of the utmost importance, because we believe that by just teaching random knowledge facts, we are not teaching science and we are not leading to better scientific comprehension. To put simply, we believe that science education inevitably entails learning about how scientists learn what they know. So again, a focus on the process. This is important because regardless of what course you're teaching, what topic, if it includes the scientific process, all these resources I will talk about are relevant to you and can aid you. There are positive consequences of integrating open and reproducible tenets within our pedagogy, within our mentorship. One is it leads to future consumers of science. I apologize. But essentially, people are inundated with conspiracy theories and online articles and social media, and it can be hard to discern what is quality from what is trash. And by leading to better scientific comprehension, we're better preparing our students. Secondly, many of us are or soon will be mentoring future scholars, undergraduate or graduate. We want to educate on best transparent, open practices, how to read the body of literature, be skeptical, and identify red flags, and then to contribute to the body of literature in a positive way. Lastly, by including these tenets within our teaching and mentorship, the outcome is just a more collaborative, crowdsourced citizen, someone who wants to actively engage with scientists and engage with products and care about public policy as it comes to scientific research. So, as I've mentioned before, it's hard. Teaching and mentoring is hard. If we're talking about the topic of reproducible and open research practices, that compounds the difficulty, because this topic and these themes have raised in prominence within the past decade, which is not a long time. So there is a lot that many of us just don't know, and it can be difficult to assess, like, where do I even begin? So one resource that was created and is accessible to you is this thing called clusters. So FORRT Clusters can also be called 7 core principles, can also be called themes. But these were created in an effort to reduce some of the burden on you as educators who want to learn and or eventually teach these concepts, right? They were drawn from about 50 community leaders on the topic of open science, and they were created with the lens of, it was a pedagogical educational lens to make it easily accessible, user-friendly, lead to incremental small adaptations and implementations within your own teaching and mentorship. So user-friendly, essentially. These principles cover everything from reproducibility and replicability knowledge to academic life and culture. So these are very overarching themes, right? So you're like, these are very broad. Can it be more specific? Hopefully that's what you're all asking. And luckily for you, yes. So under each umbrella cluster, there's something called subclusters or subthemes. So if I were to focus on any one, let's say this is showing 6 out of the 7 clusters, let's focus on number 5, pre-registration, right? Pre-registration provides a summary, but it also talks about, we can talk about the purpose of pre-registration, right? We can talk about when can and should you pre-register, how to write a pre-registration, how you can compare a pre-registration to an author's final published manuscript, right? There's a lot to talk about. And like I said, if you're like me, there's a lot of blind spots here. You're like, oh, I may not know so much about this theme, or I may not know so much about that sub-theme, but you want to. You want to learn, and then you also want to educate others as well. So I'm going to show a snippet of the FORRT website. Specifically, it's going to focus on Cluster 2, Conceptual and Statistical Knowledge. So on this website, it's kind of like what you saw before, right? There's a description, and there are these subcategories ranging from null hypothesis testing and the logic to effect sizes and questionable measurement practices. What I want you to focus on is at the bottom. For each subcategory, you'll see these bullet points, and these are essentially resources, activities, and articles. Are these simply APA format bullet lists that aren't too helpful? No. Every resource we recommend is available and is free and accessible for you all to use as a resource as instructors, right? So they are there for you. And I really want to talk a little bit about these resources as they relate to FORRT's educational nexus, right? So this educational nexus you can think of as a database with curated readings. So for all those 7 themes and every subcluster under those themes, there have been articles, resources, activities that have been chosen that are entry level, that are easily readable, easily accessible, and cover a wide range of topics, of course, right? And every submission, every resource, because this is a grassroots organization, they're publicly submitted. So this is submit, members and volunteers for an organization vet through it. They tag articles to say like, hey, which core principle does this fall under, or does it fall under others? And they're read and vet through is essentially the main point I want to talk about. In addition, they follow FAIR guidelines. What FAIR stands for is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. As I mentioned, every resource we recommend is accessible for you to use. Through the database that's been created, you can type in any keyword or any topic and it's easily findable. They're in a format that can be downloaded or interoperable, and you are free to reuse it as much as you want. Every resource follows these 10 simple rules to make teaching sources fair, such as providing a description of every article we recommend, of welcoming contributions from you as a public, of being given a unique DOI to find. And we hope this aids you in really trying to educate ourselves and eventually educating others on these topics. So this is just a quick example of the database, right? So for example, you can type in any text. You can sort by a cluster category if you wish. You'll see that there's authors, abstracts, who the primary user for. Everything has already been established by our volunteers and mentors for you to use and to ease that burden on you as instructors. Now, if you're like me, you're like, great, I have 10 articles and I have access to those articles. The abstract can sometimes be misleading. Do I want to take the time to invest and figure out if this is actually what I'm looking for? And a recent project has addressed this concern. And to reduce, again, some of that burden on you and make it as easy for you as educators as possible, what has been done is volunteers have read through these curated readings and essentially have main takeaways above and beyond the abstract. So instead of you manually having to open a file and read through the file and skim through and be like, hey, is this actually what I'm looking for? You can look at these main takeaways and make a quicker judgment of that account. In addition to these main takeaways, but I don't have visualized here, underneath are also essentially quotes or the main themes or theses of the article. So again, all of this is for a quick glance. Does this help you? Does this not? You can get in, you can get out. And hopefully that makes a little bit of sense of what I'm saying. So in sum, right, through FORRT, through this framework of open and reproducible research training and including these tenets into your courses, you can, 1, have resources to aid and identify target areas for you as teachers and mentors. And 2, you're provided with these resources that have been meta tagged and summarized for you for ease of navigation. In addition, there are also new pages added to the sites for distant teachers and distant learners, right? So we now have web pages dedicated for remote mentors that are addressing the concerns of having online students that come from underprivileged and underrepresented populations. In addition, there's also something called pedagogies, where these are essentially like highlight articles of rockstar instructors and exactly what they're doing, who are exemplars, right? So people we can read about, see what they're doing, and see if we can include any of their actions, their philosophies, into our own. There are also many social justice initiatives offered by FORRT, ranging from open office hours, which are held by once a month by the community, so that if you want to learn, adopt, or disseminate reproducible science tenets, if you want clarification questions, our community is available for anyone who would like to join. There's something called the remote mentorship program. If you want specific help as a mentee and you come from an underprivileged or underrepresented background, if you come from a non-weird population, if you come from an institution that's not open science friendly, there are mentors for you that can help you, aid you much more in depth. And lastly, if you are an early career researcher who has a degree, but you still need help when it comes to open science and writing grants and getting funding, there are resources there for you. There are multiple ways you can participate with FORRT as an idea and as an organization. One is, again, simply engaging and spreading word about these free, accessible resources. So just identifying yourself, what it is you don't know, and educating oneself. Telling others, like, hey, this exists. We have many initiatives, such as the social justice initiatives, ambassadorship programs, and whatnot. And if you'd like to stay up to date, you can sign up for our newsletter. Ideally, we want you to implement these materials, not only to have you taught yourself, but include it into your own pedagogy and your own mentorship. If you've written an article, created an activity, or found something that you think we don't have, feel free to submit it. Because again, this is a crowdsourced project, and by engaging the public, it'd be great assistance to us. And of course, if you endorse the values of our community and you feel like teaching about these tenets is important, consider joining us. As far as today's breakout session, it is led by one of the co-founders of FORRT, Flavio. You can join in on a discussion about creating reproducible and reusable online teaching material yourself. If you have ideas or suggestions about open and reproducible education and thinking about collaborations or just a learning experience overall, so thoughts, comments, concerns, feel free to stop by. It's an informal conversation. And if there's things you want to learn more about the topics I've covered today, Flavio is there for you. I genuinely want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this video, and I hope you all have a great day.